God did not make death, and he does not delight in the death of the living. For he created all things so that they might exist. The generative forces of the world are wholesome, and there is no destructive poison in them, and the dominion of Hades is not on earth. For righteousness is immortal. For God created us for incorruption, and made us in the image of his own eternity. But through the devil's envy, death entered the world, and those who belong to his company experience it. The Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 13 to 15, and chapter 2, verses 23 to 24. I want to begin this morning with a praise report. I want to give praise for Kristen out in the Atlantic provinces there, who is on this Sunday, June 20th, actually baptizing two young people, we'll say children, but young people may be a better descriptor, into the Christian faith. And that is always cause for celebration. So way to go, Kristen. I know your mom and dad, Alan and Peggy Eaton, are very, very proud of you, as are all of us here in Mountsburg and Westover, the, part of your earlier life faith families. And how much we're still part of your faith families is obviously your discretion, but we are very, very proud of you, and that is amazing. All right, now to switch gears to this service today. I think most of you know, but I've been working on a book for the past couple of years, and it was written a while back, and it's just been week after week, month after month of editing and rewriting to hopefully have it where I would like it to be, either published later this year or in early 2022, all things depending. And of the laborious task of this, one chapter has easily been twice the work of any of the other chapters, and that chapter is simply titled Reconciliation, and it has to do with Christianity's history with the First Nations people in Canada. Now, I'll be honest, I've referenced this, I've been reticent as I've been reading, doing research for the book, but also staying in tune with what's going on currently. I've taken a stance of trying to listen, recognize that these stories are part of Canada, but are not necessarily my stories to tell, to learn, and to figure out how to facilitate this discussion. As a researcher, as a historian, I was trying to find in that chapter a nuance to the events in order to help better explain what's going on, because there's a lot of antagonism, there's a lot of issues that remain in Canada to this day, and I'm sure among those of you who may be watching this right now. But as I furthered into my research, I am overwhelmed by the absolutely one-sided, and I'm going to use this, and I don't use this term lightly, demonic atrocities that were perpetrated against these people by Canada, by European settlers, and reconciliation is a very, very difficult topic. But I figured it was very, very fitting to be as part of the series that we're looking at. It was a horror show. Reading excerpt after excerpt, record after record, the mountain of evidence from specifically the residential schools that I was looking at, but also the treatment of First Nations people and reserves is truly a blot on the soul of Canada, and as we have to recognize too, on the soul of Canadian Christians. And as Christians, I've always counseled that we must join together and minimize our differences with each other and maximize the unity we find in the kingdom. And I will use that same idea, that same theology here. We share in each other's guilt. We share in an arrogance that can lead to something as horrific as the residential schools, because at its heart was a complete dismissal of another people's language and other people's cultures, other people's worldviews, in the belief that ours was superior. And while I tend to be sarcastic, a little bit tongue-in-cheek with this stuff, this is where the spiritual arrogance can, and in our history, has led us to. So the reflection today, because I do want to honor the fact that I have one take, is from a colleague of mine at the university, at Tyndale University, Dr. Terry LeBlanc, and I highly recommend that you watch his reflection, his speech at Wheaton College in the United States. Dr. LeBlanc is an incredible speaker. He is a deep man of faith, and he is a visionary and a pioneer. And in some ways, as we're seeing in our culture, he is a bridge between two cultures, and two cultures that have not had a mutually beneficial relationship. So I hope you appreciate and are educated about his own specific journey as a First Nations Canadian and as a Christian, his own experience of what it meant to become a Christian and how he sees the interplay between Christianity as his faith and, of course, his identity as an Indigenous man of this land. So this is going to be hard-hitting, but I want to leave you with this. As your pastor, as the person that you have chosen, right, wrong, or otherwise, to be a conduit and a teacher of the ways of God, as a brother Christian, I have to plead with you. I have to beg you to please listen to this. It's just the beginning of conversations that need to happen. Scary, uncomfortable, but ultimately redeeming conversations. For reconciliation is lauded throughout the New Testament. Every single one of us as believers are believers because God chose to reconcile us to Him. And while we can be thankful for that, we can build a whole church around that, God also calls us to a ministry of reconciliation with our brothers and sisters within our faith families, but also our neighborhoods, and in this case with people who've been victimized across this country and for generations in this country. So this is not a warm and fuzzy Sunday from this perspective, but I really think you're going to be blessed by Dr. Terry LeBlanc's speech. He is very funny, he is very witty, and like I said, this is the beginning. And I think right now, as much as I am your pastor, I want to implore you to listen to the stories of those that we're talking about. And it's not my story. It's not my story to tell, and I would do no service to it. But as your pastor, I would be doing an even greater disservice by not allowing you the honor of listening to people like Terry LeBlanc. So like I said, I think you're going to enjoy him. His reflection is beautiful, it's profound, it's funny, and I think it's a great first step as we hopefully take the journey to look and learn about reconciliation, specifically as it pertains not just to our nation, but to our faith families of Mountsburg and Westover. We're going to see more of what we've seen when it comes to residential schools in the years to come, and that is not to be avoided. It's the revealing of what has been going on. So again, and in closing, as your pastor and as a fellow Christian, I encourage you to find the bravery and the compassion to open our eyes, look at these brothers and sisters in the faith, listen to their stories, and act in ways that embody the spirit of the one we profess to serve. All right, faith families, let's dig in.